Hey guys, Dan here with this week's TV news and reviews. A couple days late, so we'll just bust right into it. We've got 6 shows this week. On occasion, in the last few weeks, we've been doing 3 shows and then a big binge. But the last couple weeks, there's been a lot of new stuff coming out, so we're going to tackle those. And we'll get right to it. There's a bunch of news because last week we sort of just talked about the Emmy nominations, so there's definitely more things to talk about this week. There's a lot of renewals specifically, and some interesting reboots and spin-offs to talk about as well. Okay, renewals. A couple of new Netflix shows are going for season 2. Sweet Magnolias. I'm not exactly sure when that was renewed, but it was a couple weeks ago, so I may have mentioned that before. But Sweet Magnolias, and then Outer Banks as well. Both of those coming back for season 2. I gave both of them positive-ish grades. Outer Banks I liked a bit more. I think that was in like the B range. Sweet Magnolias I think in like the maybe C+ range, but still, you know, both pretty decent shows. So I don't mind them coming back for season 2. 2 shows that I don't even know what they really are, but they are renewed. One is Vice, which is a docuseries on Showtime. It's going for its season 2 on Showtime, but it was acquired from HBO where it ran like 5 or 6 years. I'm not really familiar with it, but it's a docuseries. So obviously HBO had a big run of those for a little while with like the Taxi Cab Confessions and the was Red Shoe Diaries, was that HBO? I don't remember, but it's interesting when I read that because Showtime usually doesn't, you know, take cast-offs from HBO. They're like the big competitors, so it's interesting. But obviously they had faith in the series, and I believe it was nominated for an Emmy the other week as well. So obviously it's doing well for Showtime. And then the other one is P-Valley on Starz, which is some sort of stripper drama show, but it just premiered. It's only run 3 episodes so far, so I may have to check that out. Look, it's hard to keep up on exactly every release date of every new show, especially when it's on a channel like Starz that doesn't really get, you know, a huge ton of buzz, really. And I have 2 different sites that I look at for, like, okay, here's all the new shows debuting this week, and very frequently the 2 don't match up at all. So it's like, you know, one will have all these, you know, streaming ones, but then also some network ones, and then the other one will have some of the same, but neither of them had P-Valley. I didn't even know what this was until I read the article that it was renewed. So the next couple weeks I may have to check that out and review it. Walking Dead will be back in 2021 for a couple of things. So Season 10 still has 6 episodes left to film. So they're going to sort of split Season 10 basically in half. So half the season has already aired that they filmed before Corona, and then the other half is going to air, they hope, in early 2021. But also it's been renewed for Season 11, which will air in, theoretically, the fall of 2021. So that's all coming out for you Walking Dead fans. Hunters is going to be on Amazon with Season 2. That is the show with Al Pacino. I rated that one pretty highly, if I remember correctly, in the B+ maybe range. And it's Al Pacino and Logan Lerman. And I would like to binge that one at some point. I definitely want to finish the season on that. That was a good one. And then this one I thought was the most interesting of all, so I'm saving it for last. The Boys on Amazon. Very popular show. Season 1. I did review the first episode of, I don't even remember when. I think it was at the end of the year, because it came out before I started doing the TV reviews every week. So in like December, I went back and watched some of the older shows. So it debuted last summer. But even before Season 1 premiered, they announced the Season 2 renewal at Comic-Con. This year, same thing. Obviously, Comic-Con is virtual, but you know, studios and stuff still got to make announcements. And so even before Season 2 premieres in September, they have announced not only is Season 3 happening for this show, but they're going to do an after show. It's going to be called Inside the Boys, and it's hosted by the wonderful Aisha Tyler. And it's going to, there's going to be one, I guess, that covers all of Season 1, and then there's going to be another one that they put up that will cover every single episode of Season 2. So I don't know. I feel like with Amazon, most of the time I think the episodes go up all at once to binge. So I'm guessing they'll put the episode and then the after show up, all at the same time for the whole season. So that'll be interesting. But I love Aisha Tyler. I mean, I probably won't watch the after show. I don't really delve into that world. I think the only one I would have, if it existed back in the day, was like a Lost after show, because Lost had so many Easter eggs and so much going on. Like I would have Lost like sort of discussion groups, with my friends that watch the show, after each week. Oh, did you see this little thing that, oh, well, this means this, and, whatever. So if Lost had done one at the time, but of course that was before they were popular, the first one I can really remember, I guess, was it The Walking Dead had the first one with like Chris Hardwick? Because I know Breaking Bad did one too, but I can't remember which one was first. Probably Walking Dead, because that's been on forever. Although Breaking Bad's been off the air now for 5 years, so maybe it was Breaking Bad. I think it was Walking Dead, though, because I think it was called Talking Dead, and I thought that was clever. I feel like that was probably the first, like, after-show discussion. But I think it's a cool concept if you're really, really invested in the show. Again, Lost probably would have been the only one for me that I would have gotten that into. I mean, I could do a discussion group of, like, This Is Us or something, but, like, I don't know. There's not that many... I mean, I guess there are reveals in This Is Us, but there's not that many, like, Easter eggs. It's not like a mystery show. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So that will all be coming out. Season 2 and then the after show will be in September, and then Season 3, assumingly, will be 2021. All right, so cancellations, there's a few of those as well. Again, one that I've never heard of, but Money Heist is gone after 5 seasons on Netflix. I didn't really know what that was, but it's a Spanish language action drama, so obviously did very well for the Latino community, and Netflix has done very well by them with a lot of the content that they have on. But after 5 seasons, they've decided to hang it up for that one. Siren, after 3 years on Freeform. I'm surprised I don't really know about this show, because I love Freeform. I say this all the time. I'm like so out of the demo for Freeform. The demo has to be like, I don't know, 18 to 35 women, I would assume, and I'm a 42-year-old man. But I don't know. I love the shows on Freeform. I like the bold type and Grownish and all that. But Siren, that's canceled after 3 years, whatever that was. And then this one I think is just kind of funny and sad. But the CW has canceled the show Taskmaster after 1 episode. It was one of their acquired shows from England. They've got a pretty full fall slate of mostly acquired programming, because they were not going to mess around with Corona. They knew that they weren't going to have their shows up and running by the fall, so they were like, let's just do a Corona-proof schedule in the fall. We'll do the CW like premiere season in January. So that's still what they're sticking with. But this is one of the shows that they acquired. It's been running in England for 10 years, and it routinely gets 1 million viewers, which in England is pretty good. 1 million viewers here is not very good, but we have obviously a much higher population. But this one didn't even crack 500,000 viewers, which is very sad. It was the lowest rated original show on the CW in almost a year. In 11 months. So after 1 season, they yanked that. It was a game show, though, so I kind of want to watch it. Like, I hadn't heard of it, but now I sort of want to watch it. So all right, maybe I will. And I mean, I probably won't review it on this show because it's already 1 episode and canceled, but I might check it out just for my own enjoyment. All right, so up next, we're going to talk about CBS All Access. So they are sort of rebranding themselves in 2021 and kind of relaunching, I guess. I mean, essentially right now they're known as the Star Trek streamer. You get all your Star Trek episodes there. They actually have a lot of other really good shows, like, well, The Good Fight does get a lot of press too, so people might know it from The Good Fight. But there's a comedy on there called No Activity with Tim Meadows that I think is hysterical, that just ran season 3, I think, this summer. I didn't see the new episodes, but the first 2 seasons are really funny. And that's based on a show as well from somewhere else, I think England as well. But that I think is really funny. And then they have a bunch of other things that are not Star Trek related, like the CBS back catalog, which includes I don't know, Cheers and Andy Griffith and Happy Days and a lot of the old 60s, 70s, 80s shows that CBS or Paramount owns. But, I think with all the streamers out there, they're sort of focusing on, okay, what else can we do to bring people in? So they started doing more kids programming because there wasn't really any kids shows on CBS. So they acquired some weird, I don't know, like Paramount owns Nickelodeon. So this is what was weird to me. Like, why don't you just run a bunch of old Nickelodeon shows? They're not doing that. They got like Danger Mouse and Underdog and like all these, I don't know, like shows that even I don't care about, and I really like old cartoons, So now what they're doing is, ahead of the rebrand in 2021, they're going to have a library from Nickelodeon, BET, and MTV, three major players in the Paramount umbrella, and they're going to add 3,500 episodes of different shows. And like when I heard old MTV shows, I was like, oh my god, like, stuff from back when I was growing up, like Remote Control and maybe even like Singled Out and stuff like that. But no, it's the more recent stuff. It's like Catfish and Laguna Beach and whatever. Probably with 16 and Pregnant, or what's it called? Teen Mom or whatever. It's going to be like all of those kind of shows, which I was kind of disappointed by. Same thing with Nickelodeon. They could have put up You Can't Do That on Television, or Out of Control, or Hey Dude, like some of the early 90s stuff. Nah, they're not doing that. It's going to be like the more recent Nickelodeon stuff. But they did grab rights to the new SpongeBob movie, which was supposed to come out, I think, this fall. That's now been shelved entirely from theaters. It's going to come out on CBS All Access in, I think, February. I'm not positive of the month, but sometime in 2021. So they're already sort of launching that, and then there's going to be some sort of spin-off of SpongeBob on CBS All Access as well. So I assume part of the Nickelodeon stuff will be all the seasons of SpongeBob will be available on CBS All Access. So that will definitely up their game, I think. Because I think really, unless you're a Star Trek fan, CBS All Access is sort of meaningless. Like, yeah, it's nice to be able to watch, old episodes of Green Acres if you want, but like, realistically, there's so many options that I don't know. Unless you're a big Star Trek fan, I don't necessarily see the point in paying for CBS All Access. But now that they're adding all this new stuff, especially stuff for kids, I think they're realizing after Disney Plus, I think people are realizing like, oh, streamers are great for kids because you can just plop them in front of the TV, and Netflix has employed a lot of things like that. They've had a lot of like movie spin-off shows. They did like the Turbo Show and the Peabody and Sherman Show and all that kind of stuff over the years on Netflix. So they've long figured out that kids are a good foray into getting the parents to buy the streaming service. So that will be interesting. That's going to launch later on this year. So for spin-offs and reboots, we have a couple of spin-offs. One is going to be an Empire spin-off that Fox is bringing with Cookie. They have a deal in place with Taraji P. Henson, and this is, I guess, the first thing under that deal. But they want to continue her Cookie character. Look, I've never seen 1 second of Empire, unless it was like on a commercial. So, I mean, I know about Cookie, and she's no nonsense, and I love Taraji P. Henson. But, look, this will be interesting for Empire fans, I'm sure. I heard, really, after the first couple of seasons of Empire, it gets pretty bad. But one good thing is they never got to finish their season finale. Like, this was their last season, and they knew it was their last season. They had scripts written and everything, but obviously the pandemic shut down production with 2 episodes left or something like that, or 3 episodes. So I had kind of thought in the back of my mind, well, it would be nice if Fox maybe brought everybody back for an Empire movie of the week kind of thing. But if they're going to have this Cookie spinoff, well, that can tie up any loose ends that they had, going with the series finale. So definitely could be interesting to bring that world back. And then The Witcher, which is very popular over on Netflix. That is getting a prequel series. That's one of the ones, I think if I were to go back and watch a full season of any of these Game of Thrones type shows, The Witcher and Carnival Row would be the two. They're the two that I liked the most, by a lot. Most of them I find either kind of average or bad. But The Witcher I remember kind of liking, and then Carnival Row I really liked. So it'd be interesting, and maybe if this prequel goes forward, which it seems like it's going to, maybe I will watch the whole Witcher series just so I can be on board with the prequel. I mean, I hear it's really good. It's just, it's not really my bag, and so sitting down for 10 hours of that kind of show doesn't necessarily tickle me, but people do love it, so, you know, I sort of take that for what it is, too. I sort of listen to people that are more into this kind of stuff than I am, and same thing with any of these shows that I review that maybe are not in my wheelhouse, like I do a lot of dating shows on this show. I have another dating show to review today. And so I sort of look more at the technical aspects of that, but I also look at, you know, how popular is this thing? Like, are people digging it that are more than just trash TV consumers, you know, that kind of thing. So, look, people that love Game of Thrones and miss Game of Thrones are into The Witcher. So, you know, certainly it's of a higher quality than a lot of these other shows. So I think that's interesting. And then some reboots. Okay, we've got Ren and Stimpy coming to Comedy Central. Comedy Central is really delving into the Paramount library. We've talked about this a couple of times now because they're doing the Daria spinoff about Jodie with Tracy Ellis Ross. And then they're doing one other old MTV show. Oh, they're doing the new Beavis and Butthead show on Comedy Central. So Comedy Central not only taking a lot of the old Paramount properties, but obviously trying to really create a decent adult animation slate too, because these are all animated shows we're talking about. Ren and Stimpy was originally on Nickelodeon, which is also Paramount, like we already talked about. So having that on Comedy Central as well, you know, that's a good get for them. I was never really into Ren and Stimpy. I mean, we didn't have cable, so I didn't see that much of it. I've only maybe ever seen 3 episodes of Ren and Stimpy back in the day, but I was always definitely more of, obviously, The Simpsons was huge at the time, but also Beavis and Butthead. Again, we didn't have cable, but my friends watched Beavis and Butthead a lot, so I saw a lot of that in that era. But look, Ren and Stimpy certainly has a cult following, and it's you know, Billy West, if he comes on and does the voices and stuff, I think we'll have, you know, some success there. But, you know, it's great because I used to really love the adult animated shows on Comedy Central. Dr. Katz, the husband and wife chiropodists, I always forget what it's called. It might have been called Bob and Margaret. Like, that was really good. So I always kind of liked that. And then they sort of shied away from that once they got more into the let's give stand-up comedians their own shows kind of thing. I feel like that was around the time that The Daily Show was getting huge with Jon Stewart. So they were doing, you know, that kind of thing. And, oh, let's give Colbert a show, and let's give, you know, all these other people shows. And Tosh is on Comedy Central, I think, right? If it's either Comedy Central or MTV, it's one of the Paramount networks. I think it is Comedy Central, because I think MTV is like Ridiculousness and stuff, the Tosh ripoff show. But so they were, you know, then it was an era of giving comedians their own shows. So I'm glad they're getting back in animation. I don't necessarily mind that it's sort of redos and stuff, because I love Daria and Beavis and Butthead. Everyone loves Ren and Stimpy, I guess, just not me. So I think it'll be a good idea for them to kind of go off of that and get some more of those adult animated shows. And their target demo, I feel like, are people that kind of grew up on Beavis and Butthead and stuff, so it makes sense. The one that is of most interest to me is a game show. That is The Chase. So this was a show that I was introduced to on GSN, but it comes from England, and it's basically a genius, pretty much, at least a trivia genius, but maybe a genius in general. Mark something. I think it was Mark Liddell, maybe, or something. But anyway, so he played the Beast, and they would ask questions of, you know, both him and of the contestants, and, you know, to see who gets more right or whatever. And then at the end, the chase part was, you know, you had to answer X amount of questions in a certain amount of time, and then the Beast gets a different set of questions, and then has to answer as many as you did, plus some. I forget how it works. It's been a few years since I've seen it. But anyway, so this is going to be real interesting, because ABC, of course, has been really championing the return of game shows to primetime television, specifically during the summer. But They do some like around Christmas time too. They do like the Celebrity Family Feud and stuff. But they have, Match Game and Press Your Luck and To Tell the Truth. And I'm actually kind of annoyed with with ABC and their game shows because I watch them all on Hulu the next day, and Match Game is like one of my go-tos, and Press Your Luck with Elizabeth Banks, but they've only run like 5 episodes this whole summer. To tell the truth, they've had like 8 or 9, but for some reason Match Game and Press Your Luck, they've only run like 5 episodes. So every time I go to Hulu to look and see if there's a new episode, there isn't. It's making me very angry. Also, I thought they were bringing back Card Sharks with Joel McHale, which ran last summer for the first time, but they didn't. But I think it's still in production or something, so maybe they just are saving them in case their fall schedule doesn't work out because of Corona. I don't know. But anyway, so this is going to be on ABC, and it's going to be, the Beasts are going to be the greatest of all time Jeopardy players. So it's going to be James Holzhauser, Brad Rutter, and Ken Jennings. I guess they'll kind of rotate depending on the episode or whatever, as who is the Beast. But I am real pumped about that because I watched all of those Jeopardy GOAT championship episodes. I was very familiar with Ken Jennings, obviously, from back in the day. I knew a lot about James Holzhauer, but I wasn't watching any of those episodes. I just kind of knew about who he was and what he was doing and the weird bids he would make and stuff in the final. And then Brad Rutter came at a time, I guess I wasn't really paying attention to Jeopardy at all. I think he was before Ken Jennings, but he's like the highest money winner or something. So anyway, but I loved their camaraderie on the greatest of all time shows, so I'm very happy that they're going to be doing the chase together. And that probably will be next summer then for ABC. And then the last one in the reboots is Who's the Boss? This is going to be a sequel series, like some of them are, where they are sticking with the original cast, and it's going to be Tony and Samantha. Samantha, played, of course, by Alyssa Milano. She's going to be growing up. Well, she's already grown up. She's about my age. She's in her 40s. She might be older than me. She lives in the house that, the original show was set in, where she grew up. And then Tony, it wasn't stated in the article I read whether the Tony Danza character, Tony, is going to be living in the same house or just a big part of the show. But of course, Katherine Hellman is dead. She passed a couple of years ago. And then Judith Light and the kid that played Jonathan, Danny Pintaro, no word yet on whether or not they're going to be a part of it. I would assume they would at least want to do cameos and stuff. Judith Light, obviously, still very active in her roles. She pops up in TV and movies all the time. Pintaro I haven't seen in a long time, but, who knows? He could be a part of it, too. So we'll see about that. I was never a huge Who's the Boss fan. We watched it a little bit when I was a kid, but I always found it to be real corny and not that funny. The funniest part about it was Mona, the grandmother, Katherine Hellman, but of course she's passed. And as a gay kid, I wasn't drooling all over Alyssa Milano like a lot of the kids my age that watched Who's the Boss for her. So to me, it was just like an okay show, kind of for background noise. I was definitely more into, in terms of the family sitcoms of the 80s, like Growing Pains, Family Ties. Those were mine. But anyway, so let's move into the reviews. We've got 6 to cover, and we've talked to death here about the news. So let's get into the shows. We have 4 on Netflix. Netflix keeps cranking out the shows. So first we'll deal, I guess, with the 2 that are not Netflix, and that is Muppets Now is the first one. That's on Disney+. And Disney Plus owns some of the Muppet stuff. Some of the old Muppets things are not owned by Disney, I don't think. I know the original Muppet movie is not, but they have the ABC iteration of the Muppets that is on Disney Plus. You can watch that, which, by the way, this is from maybe 2016, 2017. I really liked. I thought it was a funny show. They sort of updated it as a soapy type sitcom for adults, but kids could enjoy it too. But Piggy had her own talk show and everything. I thought that was really funny. I think they should have given it room to grow. I guess the ratings just weren't there, so that only got 1 season. So here we have now Muppets Now, and they're doing an episode a week like they do a lot on Disney Plus. So there's 2 up now, and there will be another one coming up in a few days. But I watched the first 2, and essentially this is a it's a lot more akin to the original Muppet Show from back in the 70s because it's more sort of segment based and sketch based, and sort of in the same vein of the 70s show where they're putting on a show for you. You know, Kermit hosts and Scooter produces, and then they have the segments. It's sort of like that, but in a social distancing type of format. Now, I do think this was in the works before Corona, so I think, and it may have been even filmed before Corona. I don't know. So, but it's just ironic, I guess, that it's got a very Corona live at home sort of feel to it. I'm not sure if that was tweaked after the Corona stuff. I don't know. But I remember talking about this show months ago, and how they were going to do it. So I don't know how, if anything, it was, you know, treated to reflect Corona or anything. But essentially, it's sort of, you know, Scooter's still producing. They're putting on a show, and it's all, though, like online. So we have segments of like Fozzie running through his ideas with Scooter, you know, emailing, oh, here's an idea. And, you know, with Fozzie, it's just like the idea is the title and then a brief description, and that's the gag. They never actually end up doing any of his ideas. But what I find interesting is that there's a lack of variety in the segments. Like back in the old Muppets show days, like, you know, Pigs in Space was one of the ones I remember. I was a little young for the Muppets. I mean, I remember it being on, and I remember it being a little bit in reruns, too. But I was, like a toddler when it was new. So I remember seeing a little bit of it in reruns, and, like, the last season was on when I was maybe 4 or 5. So I remember that a little bit. But Pigs in Space was, like, the big one I remember. But they didn't run it every episode, you know. It was every maybe 2 episodes, 3 episodes would go by and you wouldn't see it. Like any recurring sketch on Mad TV or SNL or anything like that. Like they didn't beat them into the ground. But so here, what I find interesting is 2 of the segments were repeated in both the episodes I watched. It was Lifestyle with Miss Piggy, and so she's doing, you know, this lifestyle brand show that maybe you would see on like E! Or something. And then this cooking show with the Swedish chef called Okie Dokie Cooking. And he's got, you know, celebrity chef there, and it's not really, they're not really celebrity chefs, but it's just a celebrity person being a chef. Like the second episode was Danny Trejo, for example. And you know, there's a few others listed here on the descriptions, but some of them I haven't even seen yet in those first 2 episodes. So I would certainly like to see more variety. And of course, you know, they have the classic guest stars. Just in the first 2 episodes alone, we saw, I said Danny Trejo, but also RuPaul, Linda Cardellini. I think Linda Cardellini actually appeared in both of the first 2 episodes. Taye Diggs was in both of the episodes so far. So, you know, there's maybe a rotating, a recurring cast, you could say, of celebrities. I don't know. I love Linda Cardellini, though. I'm rewatching Freaks and Geeks for the 10th time or whatever with my buddy Joe, so we can review the episodes for this show. And then I just recently reviewed the Dead to Me seasons on Netflix, which Linda Cardellini is also starring in. So I've seen a lot of Linda Cardellini lately, and I love it. More of her, please. But I don't know if she's in every episode. She's one of, like, Piggy's lifestyle buddies, you know. So I think it's great to see the Muppets. It's always great to see the Muppets. You know, they're always, you know, pretty funny. Some of the voices, I can't get behind as much as some of the others. I'm still not sold on the new Kermit. Steve Whitmire was the one, I think, that did Kermit for the Disney movies, like the one with Jason Segel and then Muppets Most Wanted. But it's a different person doing Kermit these days, and he doesn't quite get it for me. But most of the others are good. Fozzie, you know, whoever does that voice is great. Miss Piggy's great. So, you know, we get all that stuff. But, you know, I wish there was more variety. I love the Swedish Chef and I love Miss Piggy, but do we have to see those same segments every episode? I would say no. So I'm going to leave Muppets now with a B. I think there's room to grow here for sure, as long as Disney Plus gives it more of a chance than we got on the ABC sitcom. But by the way, I really would recommend, if you like the Muppets and you didn't see the sitcom from a few years ago that they did, please check it out, because it is on Disney Plus. And it's, I would have given that probably like an A- if I was grading stuff at the time. I really thought that was very good. Alright, so up next, Well, let's talk about the Osbournes Want to Believe. This is on the Travel Channel, and this is definitely something that was created for social distancing. It's just Jack Osbourne and his parents, Ozzy and Sharon, of course, in a room with no background really. It's just them sitting on couches, and he's showing them videos of different unexplained phenomena. It's a lot about like aliens, ghosts. Those are like the main things I would say. But he'll be like, "Oh, here's a video of this stove turning on. You could see the knob turning, and oh, nobody was in the room. Like, what do you guys think of that?" And you have Ozzy sort of doesn't really believe in much of anything. He thinks everything's kind of faked and stuff, which makes sense. He's been in show business for 50 years or whatever, and of course Sharon's been there a long time too, but Sharon wants to believe a little bit more than him, and so she'll ask questions of things and say like, okay, what do you think about this, like, or could it be this? And then Jack will show them something and she'll be like, oh, well, that shoots my theory, or whatever. It reminded me a lot of that show, Celebrity Watch Party that Fox had, which I failed. I gave it a horrible grade, where they're just watching TV, and the Osbournes were part of that, except it was Kelly instead of Jack. It was Sharon, Ozzy, and Kelly. They're sort of interchangeable, I guess, but Jack has, I feel like, more of a, I don't know, creative mind, I guess, for different shows, because he's done a bunch of shows. Like they did the I forget what it was called, but Ozzy and Jack went like traveling, which was also on the Travel Channel. So they did that, and there's been a couple different iterations sort of that type of show that Jack has done. So I guess he's one of these conspiracy theorists about aliens and ghosts and all that kind of stuff, and so he wants to introduce his parents to it. I don't know. I think this would have been better as a one-off special, but it's just the same thing for an hour straight. Like he shows them a video, Ozzy poo-poos it, Sharon, questions it, but is a little more agreeable. They make some corny jokes. Sharon says things that don't relate at all to, the topic at hand. Oh, what do you think is older? Jack, the Egyptians or the Greeks? Who cares? I think as a special it would have been interesting. As a series, I certainly don't want to watch any more of them. I think one was enough for me. And it was, look, it's entertaining. The family's always been entertaining, When I saw Ozzy do a sketch on Conan, like in 99 or 2000, I said to myself, boy, this could be interesting if they gave Ozzy his own show, and then 2 years later they did the Osbournes on MTV. So I've always found Ozzy to be a fascinating character, even before the Osbournes TV show. I didn't know about the kids at that point, but I've always liked Jack and Kelly both. They both have their positives and negatives, and it was interesting kind of watching them grow up in the spotlight as nothing more really than famous children. They didn't really have a skill set of their own when the show premiered. But yeah, this would have been better as a special for me. I never want to watch it again, but it was entertaining for the 42 minutes or whatever that it was on. So I'll leave the Osbournes Want to Believe with a C. So up next, we go to Netflix for 4 different shows. I guess the biggest one would be the new Transformers one. So let's talk about that. It's called Transformers War for Cybertron Trilogy, Chapter 1, Seige. So there are going to be 3 6-episode runs of this Cybertron epic, War for Cybertron thing. And I'm not going to review all of them. I'll just review this first one. Look, I'm not a Transformers person. In the 80s, I watched a little bit of it, but not much. My action show in the 80s was He-Man. Everything else I watched was really cartoony and goofy. I would watch Garfield and Muppet Babies and Alvin and the Chipmunks and the Smurfs. I didn't really watch, I didn't watch G.I. Joe. I didn't watch Mask or GoBots or Transformers, really. But I have 2 brothers, and, so it was on a lot. I know the basics. In terms of the movies, I have seen the original 80s movie, the cartoon one. My buddy Joe showed me that a few years ago, which I enjoyed. The Michael Bay movies, I like the first one that's about it. The other ones are kind of trash. But I did like the Bumblebee movie they did a few years ago with Haley Steinfeld. So, so I have sort of I wouldn't say I hate the Transformers, but it's not my thing. But I've seen some of it that I've enjoyed. I can at least say that. So, in this Chapter 1 Seige of the Cybertron trilogy, Cybertron is, a war zone with the civil war between the Autobots and Decepticons, and Megatron basically is trying to end the conflict. So, Prime wants to prevent that from happening at all costs because he doesn't care about, destroying Cybertron. So, that's the basic premise. And, I don't know. If you've seen one Transformers thing, to me, you've seen a million of them. It's okay. I will say that the 22 minutes flew by. I will admit that. I was surprised that it was over when it was, because it just seemed like it was getting going plot-wise, which makes sense, I guess, if it's a 6-episode, serialized thing. It would make sense, I guess, that the plot really would just start getting moving at the end of the first episode. But this is, I don't know. I mean, animation-wise, it looks good. It looks crisp. I'll give it that. Now, I did read an article about the voice actors, because the people that have been largely doing the Transformers voices, the main ones anyway, for the last 30 years, some of them were not asked to do this, so to me right away I would think, okay, well, hardcore fans are going to hate that. So that's a strike against it. I didn't think the voice work was that bad, or it didn't stick out to me. But why would it? If I only had a peripheral knowledge, or if someone, I should say, only had a peripheral knowledge of The Simpsons, and they changed the voices all around so that they were sort of sound-alikes, maybe people wouldn't notice, but I would be like, oh my god, what are they doing? Homer doesn't sound like that, whatever. I mean, kind of like how I feel about Kermit and the Muppets, to be completely honest, I don't think the Kermit voice is quite there for the current iteration of the Muppets. But I have to give it a shot down because of that, because I think anybody, because I read, a couple different articles about it, and apparently, hardcore fans of the Transformers are pissed. So, for me, it seemed fine. They're robot voices. But obviously, whatever. Frank Welker actually is one of them, which struck a nerve with me because he was in the new Scooby-Doo movie. He's been doing the voice of Scooby for, a while. So, but they did invite him to do the voice of Scooby-Doo in the movie, not this Transformers thing. So, but other than that, I mean, it just all seems very generic to me. It seems to me like if you've seen one Transformers thing, you've seen 100 of them. So, I will say that the time flew by. I was shocked that the 22 minutes was over so quickly, but plot-wise, it's the same exact thing that they've been doing for 30 GD years, Not that the plots for Scooby-Doo aren't the same either, speaking of Scooby-Doo, but I don't know. This just did not seem to me to be any different from any of the other Transformers things. So I think I'll leave it with a slightly positive grade, because I do think, I mean, it was entertaining enough. It just seemed like a rehash of everything. And I haven't even seen that much Transformers, but it seems like a rehash. So I will leave the Cybertron trilogy on Netflix with a C+. At least the first part of it. I mean, again, the other two parts are yet to come. So next, let's talk about our dating show of the week. We've talked a lot this summer about different dating shows, and this one has a bent about autism. This one is called Love on the Spectrum, and so the one we did a couple weeks ago was Indian matchmaking, so that was more on the arranged marriage side of things, and we've seen recently Love is Blind and the dirty flirty dancing and all of this. So the one for this one is these men and women are all on the spectrum. And this is a quick one. If you're looking for something to binge very quickly on Netflix, this might be it. If you're into the dating show stuff, it's only 4 episodes, and it follows the same group of people through all of it, and it's essentially just as it seems. Love on the Spectrum. It is people dating that are on the autism spectrum, and I had a conversation recently about one of my friends that's on the spectrum about that whole terminology on the spectrum, because previously it was like, Asperger's was sort of a popular phrase, I guess, or popular word to describe a certain sect of people with autism, and now I guess that is not, we don't say that anymore, I guess. It's now just on the spectrum. But the problem with that is there's 1 to 100, on the spectrum. And so, there's very high functioning, very low functioning, and then a whole mess of people in the middle. So, I'm not sure how reflective this is to the community. I don't know, but I think it gives a decent slice of a handful of people at least. And I think what's interesting about it, and what gives it an advantage over some of these other dating shows, is they are not poking fun at anybody. Like, it's a very warm-hearted show. Like, we just want to see these people succeed and find a mate. And it's interesting because they take different approaches to it. Because, like, one guy, for example, who is in his mid-20s, we see him go on sort of a speed dating type thing for people on the spectrum. And then another couple we see, well, they've been together for 4 years already, and so we talk to them about how it is and how they found each other, and this, that, and the other thing. So I think it's very interesting in its approach to different parts of love on the spectrum. Like, people that have already found love and how they're, how it happened and how they're dealing with it together, and then people who are wanting love. So I think that adds a different layer to it. And also it's a little unique too to bring the family into the situation. Not everybody's family is involved, but especially the 20-something that I referred to, his family is very present in this. And, you could see how loving they are. And, I think it's a really, really feel-good type of show. And since it is only 4 episodes, I think it's easily bingeable. And, for all the dating shows I've seen in the last few months, this to me is, I think, the one with the biggest heart. So, you gotta give it points for that, I think. So I leave Love on the Spectrum with a B+. I think it's pretty well done. It still has some, typical dating show, tropes, as they all do. They all sort of have to. But I think the characters are certainly interesting. I'm not sure it represents a wide enough range of people on the spectrum. But, I think it wants to do good. And that's enough for me to at least give it the B+. So up next, the last two we're going to talk about are total opposite of the Love on the Spectrum and the feel-goodery of that. We've got Immigration Nation and Most Wanted. So we'll talk about Immigration Nation first. These are both docuseries, and I don't often do the docuseries, but Netflix is churning them out, and in looking for more content this week, I was like, all right, these at least sound interesting. And Immigration Nation has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, so I was like, this might be real good. So basically, that is, how many episodes is that? 6 episodes. They're each about an hour. And it consists of footage between 2017 and 2020. So, all pretty much in Trump's America. About ICE and their agency and the work that they're doing. And I don't think any of it was recorded before the Trump administration. So, which makes sense, right? Because because he took office in January 2017. So okay, so yeah, it's all Trump era stuff. Now look, I don't talk a lot of politics on this channel, but if you watch the channel, I'm gay. You know that I hate Trump. Certain things. So this was heartbreaking. This was heartbreaking to watch. And it's interesting that they've released this in the era of, defund the police and all these sort of ideas. I'm not sure if that was always the intention to release it, in the dead of summer here when there's not much going on. So, you can check it out, and it just so happens to coincide with things like defund the police. But my God, some of the people that are going on ride-alongs, with the crew here, are just disgusting. They're despicable, and they don't seem to have any idea of how they're coming across on the camera. It's horrible. And then you have a couple people who are sort of, and they'll flat out say to the camera, like, well, this is the protocol that we should be doing. I don't follow that, like that to me is inhumane, like da da da. So you have both aspects, so we're seeing that not everybody, is bad, but what we're seeing, what's clear either way is that the policies and the procedures do not reflect what I think of as American values, give us your poor, give us your tired, your huddled masses, all of that. Like, this is just get them out. It's interesting because I'm watching season 5 right now of Madam Secretary too, and they just did an episode that I watched yesterday about ICE and these detention centers and all this stuff. Obviously, that show also has a very, very left lean to it, anti-Trump sort of thing. But of course, they have their own president on the show. But what's interesting about this show is, I think if you're, a super hardcore Trump supporter and you're super hardcore, like, right-wing Fox News, whatever, I think you'll have a very different reaction to it than I did, and a different reaction than the 100% on Rotten Tomatoes would indicate, because I think you would be like, oh, well, get them out and build the wall and, get out of the country and all that, but it's really devastating. Like, you hear things and you think, like, oh, okay, well, we probably shouldn't be doing that, or, oh, maybe that's not good, or, different policies you hear that maybe you have a reaction to, but this makes everything, like, it just brings everything to light. Now, look, it's a documentary. It is shot in a way to make you feel a certain way, so I give you that, but in terms of, like, real-world stuff that I've seen in the last year since I've been doing this show, this ranks up there as some of the heaviest hitting and some of the most dramatic and hard to watch things I've seen. And a documentary, I think, at its core should make you feel something, whether that's, happiness, anger, sadness, whatever, all the emotions from inside out. And I actually did feel almost every emotion from inside out while watching this. Fear for these people, anger at what's going on, sadness, for both. Joy, maybe not so much, although even in the first episode, there is a little bit of joy for some people when they can, sort of work around some of the system and everything. But boy, it's devastating. I think of all things in 2020, this might be the most important that Netflix has brought us at the very least. I guess the Jeffrey Epstein one was kind of important too, but this is just heart-wrenching and devastating. It's certainly got a slant to it, but I think it should be seen. So I'm going to leave Immigration Nation with an A-. And finally, we've got World's Most Wanted. This is another Netflix docuseries, and so each episode is basically about different people in the most wanted camp. The first one, the one that I watched, was about this cartel and El Chapo and all this sort of things. The main guy was Ismael El Mayo Zambada Garcia. He was the head of this cartel, and it's basically how we're tracking him down and how we're, getting our leads and and talking to the officers and stuff that were on the case. I try to keep these review shows under 45 minutes, and so we're right about there. So I'm going to keep this pretty brief. But it's a well done documentary. It's interesting to talk to the people who were there and who were really following the lead and tracking the criminal down and what they did and how they did it and get in the mind of the police officer and all that sort of stuff. It's funny actually to watch it alongside Immigration Nation, because it really does give sort of a flip of the coin. Like, these cops here in Most Wanted, they're really, you know, they seem to be, for the most part, you know, good people. They're just trying to get drugs off the street in this particular episode. I don't know. The others might be about killers. I don't know. I didn't really look into it. But this particular episode was about the drug cartel. So they're trying to get, you know, drugs off the street and this and that, and they, you know, will find an informant, and instead of arresting him, they'll be like, okay, why don't you, you know, get us to the top? And then sometimes they don't even know they're getting you to the top. They'll track your phone, and then they can see who you're, you know, calling, and then see who they're calling, and whatever. So, you know, the ICE agents of Immigration Nation are just, for the most part, just scumbags. Like, you're just like, oh my god, this is inhumane. How are you doing this to people? You know, the one guy in Immigration Nation straight out just goes like, well, you know, is it the right thing to do? Is it humane? I don't know, but it's the policy, so that's what I do. And it's like, oh my god, dude. Get a new job then, like, if you don't agree with the policy. But anyway, but these guys, you know, they interview in this is presented more as a straight ahead, like, standard sort of documentary type of thing. Whereas, you know, I think Immigration Nation wants you to feel something more than this does. This is more like, okay, you know, this is person A that we're trying to catch, and here's how we get to them. You know, it's more like, you know, straight line of, here's what happened, here's what I did in the thing, and here's what they were doing, and whatever, and here's what happened at the end, kind of thing. So it's certainly more standard. It's still rather compelling, but not nearly as compelling as Immigration Nation. And watching it sort of side by side, it definitely pales. But, you know, interesting enough, but not different enough. You know, so I leave World's Most Wanted with a B-. It's fine. You know, but they're a dime a dozen, whereas Immigration Nation, I think, really is hard-hitting. So that will do it for this week. There's already a couple new shows that have premiered that I want to get to for next week's show. I know, speaking of CBS All Access, the Lower Decks animated show for Star Trek has premiered by now. There's a couple other things that have premiered as well. I'm a little late with this video. Usually I try to get them up, well, I was trying to get them up Fridays or Saturdays for a while, and the last few weeks it's been on Monday, and now we're even later than that. So I'll try to get one up in another like 5 days or so, but we also have Freaks and Geeks review coming up. I have a video with Justin where we did the top 25 grossing movies of 2019. We reviewed those. Got to get that up at some point. So there's a lot of videos to get up. I have a movie review one coming probably tomorrow. So we'll see when we get to the TV stuff. But thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.